The candidates tried to stir up excitement across the country, but not in Eastern New York. Many people have lost hope in the political system. Here in Arts Eastern New York, a center for multidisciplinary arts, some artists are joking about the election like math.
I just don't get how the greatest countries in the world has these two people.
Strategist and curator Naima cannot believe what's going on.
How did we get here? How crazy is that? Insanity. That's what I'll say about this election, insanity.
Eastern New York suffers from serious issues like poverty and high rates of unemployment and crime. Council member for Eastern New York, Ennis Barron, is frustrated by both candidates in regard to these issues.
It doesn't matter that you think you're voting for the lesser of two evils. Neither one of them is benefiting the issues that we have talked about in our community.
Housing affordability is the main issue for the people with 15 shelters in the neighborhood. Hillary does address the issue of housing affordability on her website, but it does not seem enough for Assemblymember Charles Barron, who's known for having a radical voice.
You have to look at her track record. Did she build all of these housing when her and Bill was in office? Did she build all of this housing when her and Obama was in office? Those are a pack of lies.
I've been walking these empty streets of Eastern New York, and it's hard to tell if anything is happening, especially standing now in front of a polling station. But this has not always been the case.
The people of Eastern New York were very engaged in the election of 2008.
When Obama ran for president in his first term, there was such an outpouring and such a massive response in terms of voters that it was unimaginable.
Charles Barron thinks that Obama could have done a lot, but he failed the black community.
Obama betrayed us. He was a disappointment. Obama was the black face of white capitalism and an imperialistic foreign policy.
For Obama, it was
yes, we can. Yes, we can.
But for East New York, it felt like no, you cannot. After 8 years, so much hope at the start, so much disappointment at the end. If Hillary wins tonight, will Eastern New York dare to hope again? If a black president didn't deliver, will it finally take a woman? This is Ahmad Mansour reporting for NYU.
The Bronx is home to more than 500,000 African Americans, and here some members of the community say that they choose not to vote for either of the presidential candidates.
If we don't get it, shut it down!
Hawk Newsom is a resident of the Bronx and the president of the Black Lives Matter movement New York. He have decided not to vote in the presidential election until attention to criminal justice reforms becomes more practical.
Other than a few tweets and vague statements, they have not shown a commitment to black people. So until they show a commitment to black people, I will withhold my vote. They don't deserve my vote. They need to earn my vote. They need to work for my vote. Democrats have taken our votes for granted for far too long. They say vote for us so we can fix the broken criminal justice system. Hello, Democrats have been in power for the last 8 years.
Al-Hajba is a political consultant in New York City and the political strategist for the Black Lives Matter movement New York. He also has reservations against voting for the presidential election.
I say that I'm not going to vote specifically in this race. It's not that I'm not trying to disenfranchise myself or get any other people to say that they're not going to vote. It's just that both candidates for the presidential election have not given a specific game plan for criminal justice reform.
To help make their votes more meaningful in the future, the Black Lives Matter movement New York is working to bring political attention to their demands.
We're going to introduce is the Black Lives Caucus. Within the next 6 months or so, we're going to get that up and going. What we're going to do is we're going to register voters. We're going to actually get the youth that have given up on the government to consider voting once again. And we're going to create a caucus that's big enough for people running for office to actually be forced to sit down with us.
The movement's efforts for a more substantial attention in the future continues. This is Sirungamo reporting for NYU.
New York is a Democratic stronghold, but that isn't stopping the United Chinese Association in making sure the residential voice is heard. Lawrence is a volunteer who goes door to door to encourage people to vote.
It helps raise voter awareness and encourages them to get engaged so that the Asian American voice can be heard in the elections, and we can boost the strength of Asian American turnout.
Sunset Park is unique to New York City due to its diverse community. Half the population is Asian American and a third are Hispanics. Their vote could make a difference.
13th.
Even though residents have the power, voter turnout for the local primary elections was 5%. Lawrence's mission is to change that.
That politicians see that Asian Americans are voting and that they should therefore care about any issues that we have.
There's at least one politician in Sunset Park that's concerned about the low voter turnout. Local Assemblyman Felix Ortiz has been in office since 1994. As a native Puerto Rican, he understands why minorities should vote.
When these new immigrants come to our community, whether they come from Mexico, and you people say, well, they're Mexican, they come from a different perspective. Education is very critical, it's very important, it's very fundamental for the development of their well-being. So you have to teach the system that this is a different kind of community that we have to deal with. The main thing that they have as a power is that vote. Yeah.
Ortiz believes the key to getting that vote is through the newest generation of voters.
We need to continue to make sure that what the Millennium Act for, we be able to deliver it, that they will continue to work together, that they don't disappear, they don't feel that they waste their time. People need to be angry, people need to be fed up, they need to come out and participate.
As a millennial, Lawrence is working right up to today to get the vote out. This is Olivia Wilson reporting for NYU Journalism.
More than 20,000 Asian Americans currently lives in Forest Hill, Queens. That's a quarter of the local population, and many are Democratic supporters like Edwin Wong. Born and raised in Queens and actively involved in neighborhood, Edwin Wong has been living in Forest Hills for over a decade and currently serves as the president of the Forest Hill Asian Association.
Primarily, a lot of the Asian Americans in the Democratic Party, because again, of some of the values and what they want to do. I think also on the Republican side, many are pro-business, and so maybe some are business people that feel that they should be a Republican or vote Republican. And I understand that some are also because of where they came from, their originating country, that if they're from a communist country, for some reason they just wanted and like the Republican Party, so they would join the Republican Party.
But many Republican supporters are hesitant this year. According to many media reports, more and more Asian Americans either identify themselves as Democratic or struggle with the voting decision.
I am a registered voter. I am a registered Republican. But looking at both candidates, I'm a little bit at a crossroads as far as who should be our president. But I will do my civic duty and I will vote. But I'm not sure right now. But I guess when I close the curtain, I'll decide by then.
Well, as far as I know here in Forest Hills, it's because Queens, I think there's a big stronghold of Democrats. I think there are both Democrats and Republicans who are voting for both candidates. So my personal decision in terms of voting would be for Hillary Clinton, for the reasons of her being an advocate for children and families and for the middle class. She was our senator. She was also Secretary of State, for our country. So she has a lot of experience that I think is invaluable for being president.
Like Edwin Wong, many Asian American voters in Forest Hills would vote for Democratic today.
Voting for Clinton.
Probably vote for Hillary Clinton.
And I'm voting for Hillary Clinton.
Well, she has facts to back up her, plan.
Because she has more experience, she knows what she's talking about.
I think from day one, she's going to hit the ground running.
Asian American is a rising voting power. In the past, this power supported both parties. But today, more Asian American voters in Forest Hills are expected to vote for the Democratic Party. This is Veronica Wangshen, reporting for NYU Journalism.
Aged 6 to 15, the children at MS50 El Puente Middle School are not old enough to vote. But this isn't keeping them from being politically engaged. Last year, the school started a debate team that won second place at New York City Urban Debate League Championships in October 2015. Student engagement and leadership specialist Franklin Tapia's son was on that team. Now, debate seeps into every aspect of life.
My son went from just very, I'm mad and that's it, I'm just mad. When he went to debate, it changed to, Dad, this is why I don't want to go to sleep at this time. And then he'll break out 2 points. And then I will have to sit there, think of my rebuttal, and be like, no, this and this and this is why you need to go to bed at this time. And that's what debate did. It just opened up the avenue to just have open conversations with my son.
Just like Tapia, Community School Director Fiorella Guevara strongly believes in the importance of political exposure from an early age.
I was an elementary school teacher, and what I would teach my kids is like, what is our election process? How does that work? What are the systems that you're navigating? What is democracy? That's the foundation to then have these like deeper discussions in middle school and high school about how those things from the past and our present are directly impacting us and our community members.
While students at MS-50 are learning these skills, Tapia doesn't think exposing them to debates between the current presidential candidates is an effective method.
These elections have been kind of ridiculous. So
But don't you think that's something they should be aware of?
I think so, but we can introduce that topic without showing them Donald Trump and exposing them to that type of mentality.
Tapia's oldest son, Franklin Tapia Jr., feels the same way.
I can't listen to that debate. I feel like it's two children arguing instead of two people like fighting on, like issues.
However, Tapia has high hopes for the future of the country.
You're going to see future presidents, and you're going to see what after-school program they went to. It's probably going to be El Puente. Because that's what we're doing, setting up for leaders and not separating, not building up walls, but just opening doors to opportunities for new things to happen.
This is Marie Dupont reporting for NYU Journalism.
Young people are not interested in voting because they just think that old people are involved in politics.
Of the many demographics that will play a role this election, there is one that will be key in determining who wins tonight.
For young people. Votes of young people.
Young Americans.
Young people, I need you to join me.
Here's what I want young people to know. They don't have to be for me. I'm going to be for them. It doesn't really matter. If they are not supporting me, I will be their president.
Here's the thing though, she does need their support. Over the past 8 years, fewer citizens in the ages of 18 to 24 have voted or registered to vote. In Jackson Heights, Queens, most of the youth vote comprises of first-generation voters. Many of the immigrant families here have just one member eligible to vote. For them, this new generation of voters presents new representation. A freshman at St. John's College, Fatima Baryab turned 18 this January and will be voting for the first time. She believes there's a reason for the low voter turnout.
I think the thing is because we do not teach politics at a very young age.
And you think that should happen?
Oh, of course it should. That's the best way to make kids more active in politics later on in life. If you reveal or introduce politics in 11th or 12th grade, kids will not be as interested in it.
Jackson Heights has a 1:1 ratio of immigrants to citizens. And this election, Fatima will be the second member of her family to represent them in the voting booth.
My parents are from Pakistan. They came here 20 years ago, and they became citizens a few years ago, and we've been voting for the past 3 elections. So whenever they used to vote, I used to go with them. I recently turned 18, so I registered to vote, and now I will also be voting for this upcoming election.
For NYU Journalism, this is Archana Teleti.
Why aren't they firing Hillary Clinton?
I mean, he's such a downer, right?
It seems that the hotness of the election does not bother the quietness of this neighborhood, South Corona in Queens. The New York Times reported that Corona has the most heavily Latino community in Queens. Almost half of the residents here are Latinos, but they are also known to not be politically active voice in this area.
I did discuss with you yesterday, I do feel a lot of our people are not registered to vote yet. We are urging more people to vote. I was checking the numbers recently and I did notice that the Corona numbers are surprisingly low.
As a resident here for 34 years, Ileana Martinez understands why.
Some people feel that
they don't even feel like voting because Hillary and Trump, their aspects and the way they're looking at things doesn't even make sense to some people. So therefore, they say, I'm not even going to vote.
While the dislike for both candidates might be the reason why many people are not voting, the economic status might also influence their political engagement. The median personal earnings in South Carolina is almost the lowest in New York City, around $23,000 per year.
One thing that we do have is lower income families tend to stick to the lowest forms of government. They tend to stick to what they know, in this case the city council, the community boards.
But Ileana is looking at the top of the ticket. She's voting for Hillary today, and she treats this vote as a chance to change women's situation in this country.
It means a lot as a woman myself because it's giving us rights to participate in these type of events. It'll give us more opportunities in the future. It opens up more doors for us as women.
According to Measure of America, over half of the voters are female in District 4, including South Carolina and Elmhurst. And today will be their day to make their voice count. This is Jing Liu reporting for NYU.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Clinton, Trump, Clinton, scandal after scandal. This campaign is not leaving a positive impression on citizens of Bushwick.
Most of the time you see them like just trash talking each other. It doesn't really make sense.
It's either you vote for someone who's been lying to us or someone who's offensive to women.
That disappointment in politicians was clear in the primaries, with only 20% of New Yorkers voting. It made New York the second worst performing state in voter turnout after Louisiana. And in Bushwick, turnout for the primary was even worse, a big disappointment for City Councilman Rafael Espinal.
Only about 10% of the population comes out to vote. I represent 160,000 individuals. Only 60,000 are registered to vote, and only about 6,000 come out to vote in a primary. I think that a lot of people don't get involved because they feel like they don't have a voice.
A feeling reinforced when the New York Board of Elections mistakenly purged over 100,000 Democratic voters in Brooklyn prior to the primary, an error noticed by the Democratic primary loser.
It is absurd that in Brooklyn, New York, where I was born actually, tens of thousands of people, as I understand it, have been purged from the voting rolls.
The citizens purged were reinstated for the election, and 4 days ago, a judge ruled if you were not on voter registry today, you could do an affidavit ballot. But the bigger voter registration issue is being addressed by an organization called Open Primaries. It wants people to register without declaring a party.
45% of Americans who are independent voters or unaffiliated voters are not allowed to participate in the primaries. People need to be in charge of our elections so that everyone gets to participate and everyone gets to vote for who they want. That's real democracy.
That effort is for the future. To recover from the purge and get voters out in Bushwick, another non-partisan organization, Make the Road New York, went door-to-door for weeks to convince people to vote today.
People who are knocking on people's doors. And we also have phone banks where people, like tonight, are calling voters. We're also using text messages and we're using mail. Our effort will go until 9 p.m. on Tuesday, November 8th.
This is Mathieu Faure, reporting for NYU Journalism.
We've reached a milestone. The first time in our nation's history that a woman will be a major party's nominee.
Tonight, Hillary Clinton might become the first woman president in the United States. It is a great moment for the history of the country. But for American women, there is still a long way to go.
As the first female president, how would you undo some of that damage and help girls understand that they are so much more than just what they look like?
In the Bronx, female population is over 50%, but only 3 out of 9 districts are represented by women. Bronx resident Amanda Farias would like to change that. She plans to run for the New York City Council in 2017.
I think being a leader has always been something that's ingrained in me. Being in school, I was always taking a leadership role. Playing sports, I was always team captain.
Running for a district was not an easy decision to take.
You know, they say, like, it's like a golden rule of a woman gets asked 12 times before she actually ends up saying yes.
It is called the ambition gap, and according to some experts, is the reason why women are so represented in the US government. Scripps Women College professor Vanessa Tyson faces this problem every day.
I'm always trying to tell my students to run. Oftentimes they think, oh, I'm not qualified enough. I don't know that anybody would vote for me. Male candidates, these questions don't cross their mind. These crises of confidence don't cross their mind.
During her first fundraising event, Amanda gathered a good number of supporters.
Definitely supporting Amanda.
I'm here to support Amanda because I believe
we need more women in the city council.
We're losing many women's seats, that they are a voice that needs to be heard.
So having more representation of majority of the gender that lives in New York City is super important.
Although her first election night is a year away, Amanda keeps dreaming big.
President? No, I don't know. Not president, definitely not. That's too big of a job, too much responsibility. You know, I'm a New Yorker and then I am a Bronx girl forever. So I would be still representing either the Bronx itself or New York on a higher level.
This is Benedetta Cutolo reporting for NYU Journalism.
Presidency or prison. This is the future a popular Russian anchor promises Hillary Clinton. He says she will try to rig the election.
Скандал назревает грандиозный.
Many get this message in Brighton Beach, with its large population of Russian-speaking immigrants. Here, subscription to Russian TV is sold on every corner. This concerns local Democratic politician Ari Kagan. He says people here are pressured by both local Russian-language media and TV from Moscow.
From both sides, Russian-speaking immigrants mostly hear negative stories about Democrats, negative stories about Hillary, and only glorious positive stories about Republicans and Donald Trump.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails.
Donald Trump is blamed by his opponent for being too soft on Russia.
I'm particularly interested in the Russian business deals that he has.
Sociologist Sam Kliger expects about 65% of middle-aged and older Russian-speaking immigrants around the country to vote for Trump. He says the community has consistently voted Republican in presidential elections.
Anything that remotely resembles socialism or smells like socialism, they despise.
At this senior center, the majority gets their news from the Russian language media. Many came to the US as Jewish refugees, and support for Israel is among their main reasons to vote for Trump. But for Irina Churilovskaya, it is Hillary Clinton's gender that is her drawback.
Many women support her, but as a woman myself, I believe that a woman should not be president.
The annexation of Crimea 2 years ago divided Brighton Beach. Trump's stance on Russia could have alienated those sympathizing with Ukraine, but many here downplay the claims that Moscow is interested in Trump being elected.
So both sides, regardless of how they feel about Putin, they're both planning to vote for Donald Trump.
But support for him is not universal. Endocrinologist Irakli Buziashvili is a member of a Facebook group, Russian Americans Against Donald Trump.
I'm actually a registered Republican.
Buziashvili himself will vote for Hillary Clinton, but he understands what attracts other locals to Trump.
People are protective of their new identity. When they come to the new country, they want to shut the door behind them.
Any other questions?
Elizabeth Liebman challenges attitudes of locals. Her English conversation group discusses articles from the New York Times.
Are we going to get kicked out? Where are we going?
Reading about the effect of Trump's campaign on Muslims gets emotional. It turns out one person in this group, Lucy Stokalina, has doubts about Trump.
Hillary told about his corruption, about his frauds. She has some facts.
Even among these New York Times readers, this is not a popular view. The majority here seems to be determined to vote for Trump, although in largely Democratic New York, their vote is almost irrelevant. This is Olga Slobodchikova, reporting for NYU Journalism.
Good evening. My question is, what specific tax provisions will you change to ensure the wealthiest Americans pay their fair share in taxes?
It was this question that led Clinton and Trump to find common ground at the second presidential debate.
Well, one thing I do is get rid of carried interest.
I've been in favor of getting rid of carried interest for years.
Carried interest is a rule in the tax code that lets managers of funds, such as private equity, hedge fund, and real estate, to be taxed at the capital gains rate of 20% rather than at the federal rate of 40%. So how would repealing carried interest affect the real estate industry in Williamsburg, a neighborhood in Brooklyn covered in the construction sites? The biggest is the 11-acre Domino Sugar Factory, bought by Two Trees Management in 2012. But for Two Trees, the proposed change is not a pressing issue. We have a lot of concerns about the election, but I think, carried interest reform in the tax code is not necessarily at the top of the list. CEO of Williamsburg-based real estate brokerage M&S, Andrew Barocas, is optimistic regardless of tonight's outcome.
In terms of changing the environment post-election, I don't think that there will be an impact on either candidate winning. I think both are pro-real estate. Both, I believe, would be very positive for the real estate industry as a whole.
Wayne Perry, professor of taxation at NYU, Daniel Shavero, offers an explanation.
There are a lot of different tax breaks for real estate, and I don't think that the carried interest rule by itself would have much of an effect.
Are there taxing times ahead for the real estate industry here in Williamsburg? It would seem not. This is Emily Okuda-Overhoff reporting for NYU Journalism.
Home to a flourishing artistic community, the Bushwick neighborhood has seen young voters make their voices heard. In the primaries, the neighborhood was split along Myrtle Avenue. Votes for Clinton in blue skewed to the east, and Sanders enjoyed a strong following westward, shown in green. Eastland's Bar was deemed the burniest bar in Brooklyn by Vanity Fair, and bartender Eric witnessed the enthusiasm Bernie sparked.
He brought people together. I mean, it was very exciting. People had a lot of hope. They were younger, and they were, very enthusiastic crowd. I mean, he really touched a lot of buttons, and he really inspired people just to come out and vote, especially the younger generations.
So where did voters go once Sanders lost? Bushwick Burners was a volunteer organization which disbanded in September, but several members have directed their political activism towards other campaigns.
Hi, is Michael there?
Ben Gantz is one such former burner who volunteers for the Clinton campaign.
In the past, stretch where you've seen the polls tightening between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it started to feel more necessary to, phone bank for Hillary.
I'm a volunteer with Hillary for Wisconsin. How are you today? I'm doing quite well. So I understand that you're a Hillary supporter. Is that correct? Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. as long as you're in line.
Gantz campaigned for Sanders in the spring and has seen how the youth vote has shifted this fall.
They're just going to overwhelmingly vote for Hillary Clinton because the alternative is intolerable to them. Clinton's favorability ratings among young people aren't especially high, but they're a heck of a lot better than favorability ratings towards Donald Trump. To be perfectly honest, the prospect of a Donald Trump presidency is completely intolerable.
Given that she's facing a fascist dictator, and this is going to be very close, he's going to get between 220 and 250 electoral votes.
The burners say Bushwick is very anti-Trump, but will it be enough to get young voters to the polls?
Whether we like Hillary or not, we can't have Donald Trump as our president.
This is Kat Sood for NYU Journalism.